Greenland 2, Migration is about to hit theaters, and since the sequel picks up directly after the devastating events of the first film, you absolutely need to understand how the Garrity family survived the end of the world to appreciate what comes next. This means we're diving deep into every crucial moment from the original Greenland, tracing the cause-effect chain that transformed an ordinary family birthday party into humanity's fight for survival. But what most viewers might have forgotten are the specific choices and sacrifices that got John, Allison, and Nathan to that underground bunker in the first place. We're about to recap the complete journey from suburban normalcy to global extinction, revealing why every decision mattered and how each moment of chaos led inevitably to the next. Here's everything you need to remember before Greenland 2, Migration, shows us what happened after the world ended. The story begins with what appears to be the most ordinary day imaginable. John Garrity is dealing with the mundane problems of a failing marriage and work stress. Nobody could have predicted that this construction worker would soon be fighting for his family's survival against an extinction-level event. John arrives home to help prepare for his son Nathan's birthday party, but the awkward tension between him and his wife Allison immediately establishes that this family is already fracturing before any cosmic threat appears. Their separation has forced John to move into the guest room, creating an emotional distance that will make their upcoming ordeal even more challenging. Nathan's diabetes adds another layer of vulnerability to the family dynamic, because his condition requires constant medical attention and insulin supplies. This seemingly minor health issue will become a life-or-death factor when the world starts falling apart. The birthday party setup feels perfectly normal. Neighbors gathering, kids playing, adults chatting about everyday concerns, while the news plays in the background discussing the approaching Clark comet. Everyone treats it as a harmless celestial show, something interesting to watch, but nothing to worry about. But the first sign that something is terribly wrong comes when John receives a presidential alert on his phone that nobody else gets. The automated message informs him that his family has been selected for emergency shelter relocation, providing a security code and instructions to report to a military base. Because this alert seems random, John can't understand why his family was chosen while their neighbors weren't. The initial reaction is confusion rather than panic. The system appears to be malfunctioning or conducting some kind of test, making it easy to dismiss as a bureaucratic error. The illusion of safety shatters completely when the first comet fragment hits Florida instead of harmlessly splashing into the Atlantic Ocean as predicted. Since the impact completely destroys an entire city and sends shockwaves across thousands of miles, everyone suddenly realizes that the Clark comet isn't the harmless light show they were promised. The news reports reveal that more fragments are coming, including something called a planet killer that will arrive in less than 48 hours and potentially cause an extinction-level event. This revelation transforms John's mysterious alert from a confusing anomaly into a potential lifeline. And because the family now understands they might be among the few selected for survival, they begin the desperate race to reach the designated military base. The packing sequence reveals how unprepared anyone can be for the end of the world. What do you take when you might never come home again? Allison focuses on insulin supplies for Nathan, while John gathers practical items. But nothing can really prepare a family for abandoning their entire life in a matter of hours. The journey to the airbase becomes the first test of how quickly civilization can collapse under pressure. Since everyone else has realized the same thing about the comet's true threat, the roads are clogged with panicked evacuees, and the stores are already being looted. John's decision to take back roads to avoid the traffic jams proves crucial, but it also isolates the family from the main evacuation routes, making their journey more dangerous but potentially faster. At the military base, the selection process reveals the cold calculus of survival that governments must make when facing extinction events. Since the shelters have limited capacity and resources, officials must choose who lives and who dies, based on criteria that seem arbitrary to those being judged. John's family passes the initial screening and receives identification wristbands, But the process feels dehumanizing and desperate, with crowds of people begging to be included while armed guards maintain order. The family's separation occurs due to Nathan's diabetes. Chronic medical conditions are apparently disqualifying factors for shelter admission, so Allison and Nathan are escorted out, while John is already boarding the evacuation aircraft. This bureaucratic cruelty demonstrates how survival protocols can tear apart the very families they're supposed to protect. The insulin that keeps Nathan alive becomes the reason he's deemed unworthy of salvation, creating a horrific irony that forces impossible choices on parents who just want to keep their children safe. John's decision to leave the plane in search for his family represents the first of many moments where love trumps logic in this story. Because he chooses his family over his own guaranteed survival, John abandons his seat on the evacuation flight just as the base comes under attack from desperate people trying to force their way to safety. The resulting chaos and violence show how quickly order breaks down when people realize they've been left to die, turning the military base into a war zone where survival depends on luck as much as planning. The explosion of John's evacuation plane serves as a brutal reminder that even guaranteed safety can disappear in an instant. Since fuel leaks and panicked crowds create deadly combinations, John's choice to leave the aircraft literally saves his life. This moment reinforces that survival often depends on making the right decision for the wrong reasons. John left to find his family, not because he sensed danger, but his emotional choice happened to be the logical one as well. Meanwhile, Allison and Nathan's journey becomes a separate nightmare that demonstrates how vulnerable families become when separated during crisis situations. Because they need insulin for Nathan and have no way to reach the shelters, Allison must navigate a world where pharmacies are being looted and desperate people will do anything to survive. Their encounter with the seemingly helpful couple who offer them a ride reveals how predators exploit chaos to take advantage of vulnerable people. The kidnapping sequence shows the darkest side of human nature under extreme stress. The couple wants to steal Allison's shelter wristband to save their own family, so they're willing to abandon a child to die in order to secure their own survival. This moral calculus, sacrificing strangers to save loved ones, becomes a recurring theme throughout the film, forcing viewers to question what they would do in similar circumstances. Nathan's rescue comes when he tells military personnel that his kidnappers aren't his real parents. The boy's honesty and the soldier's diligence prevent the theft of his family's shelter access. This moment shows that sometimes doing the right thing actually works. The military's decision to help reunite Nathan with Allison demonstrates that not all authority figures have abandoned their humanity, even in the face of global catastrophe. If you're planning on seeing Greenland 2, Migration, and want to make sure you catch every connection and call back to the original film, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We'll be covering all the details you need to know about the sequel, and you won't want to miss any of our analysis. John's journey north becomes a study in how ordinary people can become both heroes and villains when civilization collapses. Since he needs to reach Canada to find his family, John accepts a ride with strangers who seem trustworthy but quickly reveal their own desperate agenda. The truck ride demonstrates how survival situations create temporary alliances between people who might never interact under normal circumstances, but also how quickly those alliances can turn deadly when resources become scarce. The fight over John's shelter wristband results in violence that John never imagined himself capable of. Because survival instincts override moral considerations when death is imminent, the construction worker finds himself killing another human being to protect his chance of reuniting with his family. The truck crash that follows serves as both consequence and salvation. John loses his transportation, but escapes from people who would have killed him for his wristband. The reunion with Allison's father provides a brief moment of stability in the chaos, and since family connections become more important than ever when the world is ending. The grandfather's decision to help despite the danger shows how crises can heal old wounds while creating new ones. His choice to stay behind rather than flee to Canada represents the kind of sacrifice that older generations make for younger ones, accepting death so that others might live. The journey to Canada becomes a race against time as the planet killer approaches. The family knows they have only hours before the massive impact, so every delay could mean the difference between survival and extinction. The Canadian airport represents their last hope for reaching the Greenland shelters, but the scene also shows how international cooperation becomes essential when facing global threats that transcend national boundaries. The comet fragment bombardment during their flight to Greenland creates some of the film's most intense moments. And since even small pieces of the comet can destroy aircraft and kill passengers, the family realizes that survival depends on luck as much as planning. The pilot's skill and determination keep them alive long enough to reach Greenland, but the crash landing reminds everyone that safety is never guaranteed until you're actually inside the shelter. The final approach to the underground bunker becomes a desperate sprint as the planet killer's impact approaches. Because the shockwave will reach them within minutes, every second counts in ways that most people never experience. The shelter's massive doors closing behind them represents not just physical safety, but the end of the world as they knew it, transforming the Garrity family from ordinary suburbanites into survivors of humanity's closest brush with extinction. The 9-month time jump reveals the true cost of survival. Since the planet killer's impact devastated most of Earth's surface and killed billions of people, the survivors emerged into a world that barely resembles the one they left behind. The radio communications from around the globe show that humanity endured, but at an almost unimaginable cost, with entire continents reduced to wasteland and civilization requiring complete reconstruction. The film's ending, with the family walking out into the devastated but recovering world, sets up everything that Greenland 2 Migration will explore. The shelters were always meant to be temporary refuges rather than permanent homes, so the survivors must now figure out how to rebuild civilization from the ashes of the old world. The bird flying overhead serves as a symbol of hope and renewal, suggesting that life will continue even after the worst possible catastrophe. John and Allison's relationship, tested by separation and trauma, emerges stronger from their ordeal. Since they've proven they'll do anything to protect their family, they're prepared for whatever challenges await in the post-apocalyptic world. Nathan's survival despite his diabetes shows that determination and love can overcome even the most impossible odds, making him a symbol of hope for humanity's future. The themes of family, sacrifice, and survival that drive the original Greenland will undoubtedly continue in Migration. The sequel must address how survivors rebuild not just infrastructure, but entire societies. The emotional stakes will be just as high as the physical ones. The Garrity family's journey from ordinary people to apocalypse survivors gives them the strength and experience needed to help lead humanity's recovery. Understanding these character arcs and relationships is crucial for appreciating Greenland 2 Migration. The sequel will build on the foundation of trust, sacrifice, and determination that the family established during their fight for survival. The original film proved that love and family bonds can survive even the end of the world, setting up the sequel to explore how those same bonds help rebuild what was lost. As you prepare to see Greenland 2 Migration, remember that the Garrity family's story represents more than just one family's survival. It's about humanity's resilience in the face of extinction and the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things when everything they love is at stake. If you want to stay updated on all our coverage of Greenland 2 Migration, including Easter eggs, callbacks, and connections to the original film, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, and let me know in the comments what you're most excited to see in the sequel. The world ended, but the story is just beginning.